I really enjoyed this episode. It was nice to see Friedberg get fired up. It's almost like right before they started to record, he snorted a line of gunpowder and then drank 3 Red Bulls. He was very passionate about the whole student loan issue, which it seems like the pod as a whole seems to agree on that topic. Also, I'm going to do another episode right after this about this. I was having fun just arguing with people to argue with people earlier today, and they're talking about the student loans. I'm like, well, what if this whole thing ends up getting blocked if you look at how they're going about doing this? What if this is, a ploy knowing they're going to get it blocked? I like political strategy. It's fun to me. So I'm going to do an episode on that right after this. Anyways, good episode. Kind of like, they're trying to change the vibe, the format a little bit. I like where it's going. Let's stop the, sniping back and forth about political ideals. Much more enjoyable when they don't do that. They started off with Twitter, the whistleblower. The pod said exactly what, you would expect them to say in this case. Wasn't a whole lot of insight given there, at least on my side. Everyone seems to think that Elon's doing this 4D chess thing. We'll see, right? It's either he's gotten away with some BS multiple times. Some people say pumping and dumping cryptos and doing all this stuff. Maybe someone called him on his bluff this time. We'll find out. Or did they know someone was going to come forward with some data? Were they already possibly aware that there's a whistleblower? I just feel like if Elon's surrounded by these super smart people, lawyers and strategists, did you get into this not knowing what the outcome may be? Reminds me of some show, I don't know if it was Wall Street or whatever, but it's like, we're not throwing darts at a board, right? We're going to pick an investment, make an investment or an acquisition because we already know the outcome of it. Did they already know the outcome? We're going to find out. A lot of times you hear whistleblower and you think that these people got the goods and they're going to sink the ship. And then all of a sudden they're a whistleblower, sure, but they got a lot of hearsay and nothing they can really prove. We'll see what this guy, what he has. Disgruntled employee, who knows? We'll find out. I don't always get excited when I hear whistleblower because you end up disappointed sometimes. What else we got? They went into something the whistleblower said about Twitter having like spy agents on payroll or something, or they had to in a different country. Maybe they said India. And maybe Chamath or somebody else or Freeberg was saying, well, what if they also did that for like Facebook or Google or Apple? And then what about the United States? What if you start questioning who has access to the data and espionage and all this stuff? You realize like how much technology has really compromised us at the end of the day. But I asked this question, man, it's crazy to think about. So did Twitter disclose? Let's just say this did happen, and this person, was added to whatever. Did Twitter disclose that to the FBI or whoever they're supposed to? And then if they didn't, did the FBI know? It's like, or whoever's supposed. I don't know what government agency is even responsible for that. And it's a scary thing when you think about it. It reminds me of, if you caught the Joe Rogan episode, it just popped up yesterday on my phone. I caught the clip of Zuckerberg. My YouTube's on autoplay. It feeds me this stuff. Rogan pops up. And the way Zuckerberg talked about how the FBI approached him about the Hunter Biden laptop, it made it sound like either they didn't know it was legit, or it might even be possible that they knew it was legit and they were trying to run interference. But it's scary to think, right? They knew this information was getting released, but the FBI wasn't sure if it was real or not. That's scary. That might even be more scary than if they were doing it for political reasons. So what if we just didn't know that these people were that had access to Twitter, for example? You start thinking about these two scenarios where either we knew and we let it happen, or we knew and we instigated it, or B, these things happen and we had no idea. And I think a lot of times we think these big government agencies are going to come save us. They're going to stop the next 9/11. We got these, missiles that are going to shoot down all the rockets out of the sky, and we're you can't break us. And then it makes you wonder, maybe they're not on top of it all. I don't know. Listen to that episode and you tell me what you think. There's a couple good comments on the pod YouTube. One of them I'm going to track down here in a second. This is a really good episode. A really good comment. Probably about student loans, if I recall. My thing is, jumping onto the whole student loan thing, it looks like a mess. But I always ask this question, because I have a company that does like career planning, college planning, outplacement. When we're doing career planning and let's say college planning, we ask, we look at what is the ROI of this degree. Should you spend $100,000 to get a job that might pay 40 or might not get you a job at all? These are the questions you have to ask parents. These are the questions you have to ask the students and think about. You look at a decision tree and say, what's my probability of where I'm going to end up? Where does someone with this degree from this college end up? And if they don't follow in the footsteps of their major, where do they pivot? These are all things we have to do when we're helping someone make a decision or give them insights on what college to choose or degree or to not go to college at all. You look at that and it's like, what is the value of this? Look, there's some very true things here. If you want to be a doctor, you go to a good school, you become an MD, you become a doctor, life's good. You want to be an engineer, you go get a BSME, go get a BSEE, and you go get a job as an engineer, and life is good. Those things make sense. Where it gets really murky is, I was told I had to go to college, and then the college will push you into like psychology or communications, because a lot of times those require the least amount of math. You spend $50, $60, $70, $80, $100,000 or more on education, and you get out in the world and you realize that employers aren't looking for that degree. So now all you do is basically you're able to check a box that says I have a bachelor's degree. You're qualified to do nothing. You have no skills, no technical skills, you have no expertise. You just meet the minimum requirements and you spend $100,000 to do that. That's where things get murky, and you can see why people are really frustrated with the amount of student debt that's racked up. Trying to find this comment. If I see it, I'll actually read it. But it was about the student debt stuff here. We're talking moral hazard. Oh man, you guys got so many comments on here. It looks like you buried the one that I was looking for. Anyways. Chamath was going off, Friedberg was going off about student loans. You have to ask yourself the question, is this the best way to spend $300 billion? And then on top of it, the money's not going to be free. It's not like the cash is sitting there, and I don't understand exactly how the Fed's going to do this. Let's just say it ends up costing us $400 or $500 billion. Doesn't it seem like we would have been better off taking that money and helping the bottom 50% of income earners instead of spending the money on the people that already had the college degrees that tend to make way more money if you have a college education? It makes no sense to me. I also have this thing where we're not fixing the root issue. I do episodes of Kane. Kane always talks about America's really good at never really fixing the problem. You watch these tenure professors that are making a boatload of money, and it doesn't seem like they do much. They often treat their students like crap. These endowments are huge. $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for one class sometimes. None of this is going to get fixed by doing this. It also won't fix the root causes of the problem, which is You got the wrong degree most of the time. You just spent 4 years of your life. You spent the money on room, board, education. Many people went back and got a master's degree on top of it, completely rudderless. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're really going to use this degree for. You rack up debt. We're solving none of those problems to get a bunch of degrees that society's saying we don't need. Like in certain areas, we need dentists. There's a lack of dentists. There's a lack of nurses again. We need welders. We need people to repair diesel engines. There's so many things that we're lacking. But college will often push you into these things that where they think they can just get you through the program. Look, take the $300 billion and say, look, you want to become a dentist, we'll pay for it. You want to go become a welder, we'll pay for it. You want to go become a nurse, an RN, CRN, you want to do that, we'll pay for it. Why are we not looking at the gaps in society and saying, we need to fill these roles? Because there's going to be no one there to, weld that thing you need to keep life moving. There's all these jobs that I often say, if you like the way you live, then you should care more about the people who don't have the degrees. It's the working class that kind of really keeps this world moving. But we don't need just working class. We need doctors. We don't need any more lawyers, right? Let's get the lawyers out of here. You're gonna need the dentist. You're gonna need the researchers to solve cancer. You're gonna need someone to pick up your trash. You're gonna need someone to drive that semi truck to bring your groceries to the store. Were we not better off trying to help the bottom 50% of income earners with, some kind of educational assistance to get them a better paying job? I don't know. I don't have all the answers here. Or at least looking at the roles we need to fill in society to keep us moving forward. Yeah, we didn't do that. We're just going to go wipe out debt. Someone else had a good comment that says, what's crazy is, the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for this. And you think about how many people just kind of phoned it into college, got crappy grades, racked up a bunch of debt. Everyone's going to be paying off that. You're paying off people's debt who just got bad grades and pissed off all the time. You saw the whole pod kind of irritated by this process. It's going to add to inflation. They also brought up, the people saying do the student loans, that they should forgive student loans. We're also talking about the bailouts of 2008, and the government made money on those, come to find out. I saw on Twitter a lot of people talk about the payroll protection program. If they can do that, then they can do the student loans. And what's funny is if you look at what that was, a bulk of that money went to payroll. And I don't think, obviously the people talking about that weren't running a business. The government told you basically had to shut down. What the payroll, listen to the name, payroll protection plan, payroll protection plan. Like it or not, that was extended unemployment. That was getting your full freight of unemployment. I didn't really know a single employer that wasn't on the verge of laying off a mass quantity of their people. If the government was going to completely shut down the country, people were just going to get laid off. That is how the government kept everyone from just losing their job. If they would have went all in, they would have bankrupted all the unemployment agencies. Again, if you run a business, you already know those things. Like, not only do you get the state tax, you got to pay the federal too, to make up for shortcomings in the past. Payroll protection, was that it? Like, people got to keep their jobs, or if they did get laid off, they got to get called back. All that was essentially, more unemployment money. Call it whatever you want. You look at all this stuff, and then you look at, there's a lot of people who got the fat unemployment money during COVID, and if you talk to people that were managers at stores at the mall, they were booming. Many people didn't take the money they got. They didn't get that windfall they got from unemployment. They didn't take it to pay their school loans off. They didn't take it to pay their debt off. They just went to the mall and bought more stuff. It's just crazy when you think about, everyone just got their hand out right now. And society's going to fall apart if we just don't get back to work and add value every day to the community around us. I don't know. I think the pod crushed it on the student loan topic. I might even watch it again. We'll see. They talked about the red ripple for a minute. Look, ever since um, the abortion reversal, whatever momentum the Republicans had, it seemed like that's gotten crushed. And I go back and I look at political strategy because I only thing I've learned from people on the streets to politicians to people in business, once they're in power, they will do anything to stay in power, even if it means going against their own goddamn principles. I look at the Democrats and say right now that what if they wanted that thing to get overturned because it was gonna save them from the bloodbath this November. And you got to think about that for a moment. Would they be willing to do that to maintain their power? And I'm saying it's possible. What if it was someone on that side that leaked the paper originally from the Supreme Court? Maybe they wanted this to happen. Like, you got to start. There's always so many games being played, and you've seen that this happened, and it really shifted things back towards the Democrats when it seemed like it was going to be all Republicans here. So they're saying instead of the red wave, the pod's talking about the ripple. Can't even pronounce crap. And then I think Sachs was talking about the quality of candidates. And like, I'm not really paying attention to a whole lot right now. I'm off just trying to worry about my life. But if you look at some of the candidates that are running, you look at some people. I guess it's on both sides of the aisle. It's like, man, dude, are people really voting for this right now? Who knows? There definitely seems to be a lack of quality of candidate on both sides. But I think that's definitely hurting the Republicans from the little bit that I looked into right now. So Sachs probably has a point there. There's probably some other stuff in there I'm missing because I caught this episode this morning. The gut bacteria thing where Freeberg nerded out for a minute. I find that stuff to be interesting because I read about it in the past about certain cancers and there's all these different health issues that start in the gut. And I've never been a huge fan of drinking like the fake sugars. Granted, I'll stop by McDonald's and I'll whatever. I'm not a healthy eater by any means. There's things that I do question though, and it's like, man, I'd just rather drink a regular Coke than a Diet Coke. And I was asking my doctor about this one day. There's this big kick on, eating the fake butters and all this type of stuff. And I asked him, am I crazy to think I'm just better off eating the Lando Lakes, real butter instead of like, you look at a Country Crock or something, or I forgot which one I was looking at. Like the amount of chemicals and crap and vegetable oils and it's almost. You look at some of the vegetable oils and stuff on the shelf, and it looks like, is this industrial sludge? Like, do I want to put this in my body, or do I want to stick with, like, a real olive oil, or a real butter, or hell, just animal fat in general? Am I better off with that versus all this over-processed fake stuff? And I'm at a point where I'd rather just drink a water than drink a Diet Coke or something with, the aspartame and what's the other one, circulose they were talking about, and we got all this fake stuff. Does it not have some effect on us at some point? I don't know. And they're talking about the gut bacteria, and there's been a lot of stuff about that in recent years, and then obviously controlling, some people are talking about controlling the pH levels, and I mean, now that I think about it, it's a bacteria that causes ulcers, right? That they give you, they prescribe like antacid and like an antibiotic or something for like 8 weeks to try to knock this bacteria out of your stomach. What if everything just starts there? Would we have been better off just, roasting meat over a fire and eating whatever we can find on trees and bushes and stuff? When you just stick to that basic diet and you get away from all the processed foods, do you live longer? I don't know. Anyways, great episode. I'm going to follow up here with my crazy thought about student loans getting blocked somehow. Couple random thoughts on that, just political strategy stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't find that comment from earlier. They made it right when the podcast started, and I read it, and I'm like, man, that sounds exactly like something I would say. But just that whole thought of, are we getting the right degrees? We're spending all this money to just check a box. I asked this question when you really look at what modern education is, that why do I need to take, a class on sociology or the habits of elephants, right? Why do I need to take all these classes if I want to get a Salesforce CRM job at a tier 1 auto company, or if I want to become a buyer, or I want to be like a warehouse supervisor somewhere, a warehouse manager? Why do I need to take all these, the first 2 years of college, which they quote unquote make you a well-rounded person? I don't need all that to run CRM. I don't need all that to go into sales. And I don't need all that to be a warehouse manager. I know it makes you more educated. But is that worth the extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 when you already can't afford the goddamn school to begin with? That shouldn't be a requirement to just go get a job, build a career, and add some value to society. We're going to have to change things at some point, and the thing with the student loan forgiveness is it's going to change nothing. It only encourages the colleges to stick with this program and to keep charging more money. An associate's degree that specializes in a certain function should be good enough for corporate America to say, okay, I'll hire you to be a buyer on the procurement team. I'll hire you into sales. I will, maybe engineering. But again, engineering, they're going to try to make you go through the first 2 years. And you have to take all these like art and culture credits and all these different things. Is that required to become an electrical engineer to help design an alternator for, Caterpillar? It's just gotten out of control. Until we kind of uproot that system, nothing's going to get fixed. In fact, it's just going to get more expensive because they can. Anyways, you got any thoughts? Drop a comment below. Till then, I'll catch you in the next one.